Hey, welcome to Patriot XL, episode number 2. Working for those views. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball. We haven't got enough views because people haven't found this awesome stuff, but with some consistency, you will be tuning into Chris Greenman's Patriot XL. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, Johnny Thunder. Johnny, you have a different look than last show. I kind of like this look a lot better. It's a little more risque.
Well, it's a bit of a Magic Mike kind of vibe. Put it out there.
It's tough because you're so good looking, and I'm just kind of like a normal person, so it's kind of tough competing with you. But we're friends. So I'm happy about that. It's great.
That's a sign of security, but I can always average myself up if you'd like. Hey, Bill Dixon here. I'm not Johnny Thunder. How about that? Is that better?
I mean, that's a good looking guy too. I mean, you have a lot of different faces on you for sure.
I do. I think I'm going to go back to the original Johnny Thunder.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
There we are.
There we are.
There we are.
Now I feel like I have my real partner here. This is good.
That other guy was too much.
So a lot of times we talk about crime itself, or not crime itself. We talk about the political decisions these people are making, like the border, stop building the wall, or the immigration policy, or whatever the direct things that Biden does. Whether he stopped oil production in our country, or started buying it from foreign places, which caused our gas prices to spike after 3 days in office. But we don't talk about the effects a lot, or like how much a grocery store costs, right? These are the real effects that affect people, which cause them to obviously want to change and stuff like that. So I thought today we could maybe focus on a little bit of how it hits the crime area, because that's an area that you and I have a lot of experience in, and maybe address that a little bit. And if that sounds good to you.
That sounds great to me. I mean, you being former police officer, me being military police,
Exactly.
we could compare costs of what we've seen. I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. We could, talk about some of the differences we've seen, the impact of this whole thing. That would be fantastic.
And I continue to have a law enforcement presence in what I do to this day, and so I have a lot of new relative information, and the feedback I'm getting as when I because I represent a lot of police officers and police officer associations when they have hearings against that with expert testimony. So we can bring a lot of the new relevance along with some of the older stuff as well. Let's start off with this.
Go.
Plaguing the South Sound, where you're seeing a rise in the number of kids connected to crimes. In Tacoma, half of this year's homicides involved children. Good evening, and thanks for joining us for the news at 10. I'm David Rose.
And I'm Brian Jackson. That trend has many asking what is happening. Fox 13 spoke with the Assistant Chief Criminal Deputy about young people committing such violent crimes. Our AJ Janival joins us now live with what he had to say. So AJ, what new are we learning?
When we hear violent crimes involving children suspects, we all want an easy answer. But Assistant Chief Criminal Deputy Diane Clarkson tells us the cause of this terrible and heartbreaking trend is a multi-sided problem.
Kids with guns, accused of robberies, drive-bys, stealing cars, and murder.
It makes you wonder where the system is failing. Is it the home? Is it the schools?
Diane Clarkson is the Assistant Chief Criminal Deputy with the Pierce County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. She oversees the juvenile and misdemeanor units and has worked directly with Raymond Hall. Clarkson says she's seeing an unprecedented amount of crimes involving kids.
What I'm seeing as a prosecutor is that we release them back to the community on probation, and they're committing bigger and badder offenses.
Last week, police arrested 6 teenagers linked to a multi-county robbery and assault investigation. A crime spree going on since July. And police arrested 2 teenagers in connection to murdering a 16-year-old Foss High School student in late March.
We're certainly seeing an increase in violent crimes by our teenagers.
Clarkson tells us law changes in Washington state, easy access to how-to videos for committing crime on social media, and a lack of outlets for young people are all adding to these crimes.
But if you're in society and you're breaking the law, then again, what is the consequence? What's the consequence in Pierce County? What's the consequence in Tacoma?
What is it?
So when you watch that, it makes you not too happy. But the thing that she says at the end is actually the most relevant one. It's the lack of consequence, and that stems from prosecution. It's that old story. If you're a little kid and there's a cookie in the cookie jar and you're not supposed to have it, and you have one parent that will hit your hand and kick your butt if you take it, and you have the other parent that'll say, "Oh, Johnny, it's okay, just don't do it again." Ooh, what are you gonna do?
Right.
You're gonna eat that freaking cookie, man, because you're
gonna come back. You figure the consequence is not that bad. It's like certain criminals find a certain crime and they figure out that they can keep repeating this crime without much of a penalty, without a serious penalty to follow. So they commit a lot of those types of crimes that they can get out of, I guess. I mean, what type of crimes would that be, Chris? Because
I got a nice stat along that note. Say you're in anywhere in the Middle East and you steal a loaf of bread. What do you think happens?
Chop off your hand.
Right. What do you think the rate for theft is in those countries?
Pretty darn low. I was actually in Dubai. I got to tell you, as they claim, and everybody that was hosting, was telling me this is one of the safest countries in the world.
Yep.
And it is. You could leave your Rolex on the table.
Yeah, because there's a consequence, and what we've taken away in this country is the consequences. The DAs won't prosecute; they have the no bail release. You can do any crime in Orange County or LA County, and pretty much you're just walking out. Okay, with the exception of maybe murder and rape in some cases. But some cases they'll let you go. They won't even put you in jail. They will actually just release you.
What's next? Are we going to see the rapist be the victim of raping somebody? I mean, that's how pitiful and how upside down. It's like upside down day. Up is down, down is up, right?
Yeah, we're getting to the point where we have so much sympathy for the people committing the crime, where it might overtake that of the actual victims itself. So what you said is actually, I know it sounds like far-fetched, but who's to say if we keep on going the direction we're going, someone could get raped and say, well, you know what, my childhood I was abused by three priests and a person that worked at the pet store, and then all of a sudden the focus comes on you being a victim, and they might give you restitution because maybe 20 generations ago you had a slave in your family, and then you're set. And that's kind of, I know that's a little crazy, but it's not too far from the direction things have been going.
Well, I mean, geez, here's a good example. San Francisco during the old COVID period. Basically, right. I'm going to call it COVID because I don't want any words to hit YouTube algorithms. You know what I mean? But yeah, good old the coffee era that we just went through. Right. During coffee time.
Oh, I like that. Coffee.
Yeah. Coffee time.
I'll go with that.
Yeah. So during coffee time, all these people were allowed to shoplift up to $900 in San Francisco. And I talked to a guy that was actually doing it. This was a shipmate that was on my ship when I was in the Navy. He became kind of semi in and out of homelessness.
Okay.
And he was on the edge, but he had a cell phone. And I go, dude, what's going on? And he's making these crazy videos and hanging out in tent cities. And I'm like, cool, dude. I know you, and I understand that it's been a little difficult for you. I'm not judging you or looking down my nose at you. Let me just ask you, what's going on? I go, how's the shopping been? He goes, oh man, we got like 20 different pairs of new shoes. Don't even know which ones to pick. Sometimes just leave them in a bag and no one even cares. And that was the kind of vibe I was getting from somebody at the front end of this $900 shopping spree credit that was allowed to all the homeless people or just criminals. Maybe they weren't all homeless. Like, let's not broad brush it. Maybe it wasn't all homeless. Maybe people had homes and they decided, I love this new 0 interest free shopping credit card that's being offered at all the stores, and that nobody at the stores can do anything about it until they put a majority of the stores out of business. And then like a lot of stores where they have that, everything that you go to see is locked in a cage. I want to get those, that pack of gum. Okay, let me get the key. You know what I mean?
No, it's so stupid. I don't even go. That's why I hate to endorse Amazon, but I pretty much just shop there because I don't want to go to the store, wait for you to go get me my freaking razor, and then have it to get another cabinet with another key with someone that doesn't have the key to this one to get me my deodorant or whatever. It's freaking ridiculous. This lady's working out at a gym.
Whenever he was at the door, I buzzed him in and he came inside. My thought process was it was just another dude coming in to work out. So I didn't think of anything out of that. He started chasing me around the bench and we ended up on the other side of the gym. I pushed him. I said, bro, what the F are you doing? Get away from me, stop trying to touch me.
You get the idea. I don't have to keep playing that, but the point is you're going back to consequences. This guy is obviously not worried about getting caught. Why is that? There should be, if you think you're going to attack somebody, you should have the fear of God that you're going to be put in jail and it shouldn't even cross your mind. This guy is not worried about it, and that's clear.
Right.
And And that's the mindset that people have to understand is when criminals get this mindset, when there's no consequences, we're screwed.
Right.
You really, and even beyond that, even if you have the best cops that you could ever put together, like you have RoboCop, right? And RoboCop can catch people that they don't even know that they're stealing, catch you. You're at Walmart and you don't scan an item, and RoboCop comes there and has you under arrest within 3 seconds. If he can't send it to the DA's office to prosecute, it's useless. And
if they won't prosecute it, it's useless.
Exactly. So, and that's the biggest problem LA's having right now. Is they're not prosecuting anything. The jails are the emptiest they've been ever. When the crime is the highest it's been ever, which is asinine. So.
I heard the term Prisneyland because of so many crazy things happening, like men going into women's prisons, identifying as a woman,
right?
Things like this.
Hey, if I ever go to jail, I'm going to identify as a for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's got to be a few hot ones.
That's probably what's happening.
Yeah.
But then you're definitely locked up with the best of the best. So maybe you might not want that.
That's true.
It might be more of a headache than you anticipated. You're like, man, I miss hanging out with the guys in the yard playing dodge the shank.
Yeah, let's go shopping for sausage.
That's just a different game.
What's funny is like when I used to bring people when we used to have to transport into jail, there was one question they asked. And it was real simple, and this wasn't that long ago. I mean, is that if they had a male member or a female member, and that was the determining factor of which jail you went men's. So if we still had that, it'd simplify things, but it's kind of complicated now.
It is quite complicated, and I'm seeing more and more of this. So that's what they call it, Prisneyland, and former what they call in prison chomos. Basically, those guys are being given more privilege, and I guess they're not getting wrecked as much as they used to be because that type of movement, that type of culture is penetrating even into the hardened prisons.
Yeah, let me show one more clip for today, just to.
Most of the criminals here, the way our bail system is set up, it's a revolving door.
The crime is ramping up because there's just no consequences.
It's not that they're not getting caught, they're just getting let back out.
How many times have you been robbed? So the last 3 months, or last 4 months, we've been robbed 3 times. About 4 weeks ago, we were looted. 6 kids coming in, they're probably between the ages of 16 and 20, and they just ran in and out, emptying the store. They were in and out in 45 seconds. And they took $20,000 worth of stuff. But if they caught them, they probably wouldn't even spend the night in jail because there's no capacity for it.
Do you think it's time to turn the heat up a little bit when it comes to the criminals on the street?
I absolutely do. That's not a popular opinion in our city, but I think we've done so much protecting the criminal that we have now put the law-abiding citizen in jail because they don't know if their wife can go to the grocery store and come back, if their daughter can go to the gas station and come back.
There's a social experiment being conducted in real time in our courtrooms and in our jails. And
wow, heavy take there, buddy.
Right.
The social experiment is the key, the key thing here. This all takes me back, and I wonder if you've ever seen this guy. Have you ever heard of Yuri Brezhnev or Brezhnev? I think that might be how you say his name.
Is he from Russia?
Russia KGB defector in the 80s.
I never heard of him. I just knew he was Russian because his name was Yuri.
Well, let me tell you about this cat. He talked about this a long time ago. Was the best way to get at everybody was to use subversion and put people with certain ideologies like Marxism and different things into our universities, which has happened, which we have a different, called the smoke movement. Anyways, basically that was put into our schools. So the kids will, your kid goes to college, you raise them with good values, competitiveness, to build a good life, to be proud, to be focused, to be disciplined, and good things, a good foundation. They go to school and the teacher's saying, your dad's an idiot. You shouldn't listen to him. You're a super genius kid. You should smoke this thing over here and go jogging nude through the forest and let everybody know and make Instagram videos of it. Right. That's a really extreme exaggeration, but essentially that's just the visual cause and effect.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Are you seeing stuff in the schools out where you're at?
You see it everywhere. Orange County is kind of like a bubble. It's a little different than I would say the rest of a lot of other parts. But to summarize this show that we did is basically and that's the biggest problem. When you give a little bit of a rope, a little leeway, people just take advantage of it. People want rules. People want to be told what to do. People want to people actually want consequence. They for actions that I think that are universally accepted as immoral, improper, and that type of, depending on what country you live in. So, but from a behavioral standpoint, people are usually very receptive to.
There's so many things at the root of this. I'm not going to go that deep, but you're seeing these young kids. They realized, like we talked earlier in the podcast, there's no crime. There's nothing to pay for. If I get busted, so what? There's 6 of us. That older man's less likely going to peel our cap. We could sue him if he punches us. They look at every different angle. This guy's trapped. When the robber shut the store, he has to comply.
Universally accepted to have all this sympathy for the criminals, which I don't know who started that, man, but that wasn't a good idea. I don't they're to a point, sure, to be represented equally, if you're white, black, Chinese, whatever, I'm all for that. But on the other hand, you take it to an extreme where you just assume that the criminal, it needs to have some sympathy and needs all this forgiveness, but not when they're intelligent people or people that comprehend the basic English instructions of any government they live in. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I think other people in other countries are like, well, we don't want to deal with the hard hand of the law in our country. We'll just come to your country. There isn't that problem over here. We can freestyle the Wild Wild West Part 2.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, is there crimes happening in your neighborhood a lot or around you?
Yeah, again, it's just crimes of opportunity, mostly package theft, because the stores have everything locked up. So they go to, let's go take them off the porches before people grab them, And you have something, even if you get caught on Ring or whatever, they're not going after them. You think the police department's got the funds to do face recognition, use the FBI database to get that software? No, they don't. So they're just going to say, oh, we'll look for them. And they don't.
Well, I mean,
and most of these people, they wear glasses, wear hoods, and look away from the Ring camera.
A couple of years ago, not more than a couple, 12 years ago, I was living in California in Hayward. And guess what? Somebody came and robbed my car, stole my radio, stole my camera and everything. And that's all that I owned at the time. And called the police. They go, we don't come out for that. You can come make a report at the office. Like they wouldn't even come out, investigate, nothing.
That's the problem. I mean,
that was 12 years ago. So we were only getting progressively worse since then.
Yeah. Well, as you know, like you said, I was a cop and in San Francisco, and basically to get something to actually investigate, do real police work, it takes resources, it takes extra police officers. So if you're going to try to have a unit to catch these package thieves, I mean, you would need a pretty big group of cops dedicated just to doing that, and you'd have to set up stings, and you'd have to do a lot of work. But you could make a huge impact on that and deter it. But again, you have to have consequences. So even if you put this task force together and you're catching every single one of them, if you're not prosecuting,
catch and release.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's just one of those things where the root of the problem is obviously the process. People don't even see it.
Is the law too soft? Is there a way to change the law? Can people vote something in, do you think, that can make people, more accountable for their criminality and like, oh shit, maybe this isn't a business I want to pursue. You know what I mean? Maybe being a criminal wasn't such a good idea.
That's probably the most intelligent question I've ever heard, and that's the one that needs to be addressed. Yeah, of course things can be changed, but really you got you know what the letter of the law and the spirit of the law is, right? The letter of the law. If you change lanes while you're driving a car without due caution, pretty much everyone does every day of their lives, it's a ticketable offense. It's like an infraction, and I'm talking any car, because you have to have a certain amount of space depending on how fast you're going, on where you change lanes, and you have to use the right signal for the right duration of time. If you go by the letter of the law, okay, and so I could follow anybody home, and they're going to violate that about 20 times. Okay, so technically that's 20 tickets.
Mm-hmm.
If you really enforce that, it's a real crime, and you do it. But the spirit of the law says, hey, we don't really do that, right? And so the laws that are in place are fine if they were actually used.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, you could amend some of them to make them stricter. That's always an option. But the ones that are in place, and if you look at a certain penal code of theft, and this, depending if it's a grand theft, then it's a felony, which means that just means the sentence for that, or like the consequent, is a year or more in prison, not jail, right? Felony. So it's defined. This should be punishable up to 1 to 5 years, let's just say, right? And then when you couple a couple of different crimes in the same spree, that could be up to like 15 in jail. Well, if you actually went after that and did that, people would stop grand theft. So the laws, I think, are in place. I don't think that's
Yeah, I mean, this overcrowded jail thing was an excuse to let some people out. The coffee era, as we call it, was an excuse to let a lot of people
right.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it was like, oh, based on how big your offense is, I will just let you out. Now, some things people shouldn't be locked up. I don't think, like,
I agree.
for certain things like weed or something. I think.
Oh
that's
yeah,
drugs
in general. I mean, unless you're driving a vehicle, I mean, I personally think it should be legalized. You would free up billions of dollars. I mean, every year.
Well, the war on drugs has gone nowhere. I mean, you want to talk
Exactly.
about a war? We've had a lot of wars, but nothing like the war on drugs.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a war. It was like a Vietnam.
Yeah, it's a whole different take. So what do you think is going to change, or what do you think it's going to get worse, better? What is your outlook for the future?
Well, someone like Trump has to come in that's gonna address these issues. You can't let 10 million people in this country in 3 years and expect crime not to shoot up dramatically, because these are all poor people. These are the worst of society. These are criminals. People don't export their best of society. They're not exporting rocket scientists and
Silicon Valley's booming. So many great technicians coming through I get it.
These people, these countries that are letting these citizens go, I mean, that's a tax base. You should remember, a country's not going to just let their citizens go to other countries, willingly if they're valuable producers of society. They're only going to get rid of their crap.
Producers of money. Yeah, producers of money. These guys help our crops. Bring them back here. Right.
Yeah, you think we'd let Elon Musk go over to any like Sweden? Heck no, man.
We wouldn't want him to.
they would revoke his freaking his passport for some reason. I mean, come on. But
that could happen.
But then you got Johnny Appleseed, who's been arrested 30 times. Maybe they might let him go. I mean, it's like, so the other countries do the exact same thing, 100%.
This is the way the future's going, Chris.
Unless we have somebody that can make that change, like Michael Jackson or Trump or somebody.
Well, I mean, it's like, okay, let's take the name brand aside. We just know him because he was doing that. But let's say there was another person that was running it, there's nobody in sight that wanted to enforce the border rules. I mean, that'd be fantastic. Are you seeing people like rolling in, well, you told me the other day, businesses without licenses all over the beach area nearby?
Oh, right? Yeah, it's and I'm a fan of, I think the only smart thing I think Bill Clinton ever said was, diversity and strength. And I 100% agree with that. 100%.
Right.
But it's the quality of diversity, and just the basic. They start off coming to this country committing a crime that's not really the catered. When there's people that put in the proper application process that are very qualified, that get passed up or wait a long time to get in this country, and it's not fair to them at all. One last story. I'll tell one last story. It's pretty funny. So I have a friend that owned a huge business here in Orange County, and he's from UK. Got that funny accent, and I like it. And he calls me up one day, and he's like, "This is like during the whatever you call it, the coffee." Yeah. He goes, "Chris, I can't get into the country. They won't let me come in." And I said, "This is right when Biden got elected." I go, "What do you mean they won't let you?" "Well, they won't give me a visa to come back and support my business." Like, okay, that's cool. That sucks. And I said, "I'll tell you what. This is what you do. Fly to Mexico by Tijuana, closest you get to Tijuana. Walk over to San Diego." He goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "That's what you got to do, bro." And he's like, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm serious." And he calls me up 3 days later. He goes, "Chris, I gotta take you to lunch." I said, "Well, where are you at, man? Where are you at?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm right here in Irvine Spectrum." He goes, "Come on down here." So I said, "All right, man." So I go down there, and he's like, that was like the most brilliant idea I've ever seen. I've told 20 of my friends to do the same thing.